Okay, you are young musicians playing classic rock, hard rock. When did you receive the call of rock and roll? How did you start listening to to hard rock music, to rock and roll?
Um, well, as a kid, I first discovered my mother's vinyl record collection. And those were just, names that I had not heard of, and band, everyone from Jimi Hendrix to the the pivotal album in my life, Led Zeppelin 2. There was Allman Brothers in there. There was Aerosmith, the greatest hits from the 70s, Deep Purple, and then that kind of sparked me to look further, and I started buying CDs, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
All right, and the rest of the guys in the band.
I think it was a similar journey, although I don't think it started with vinyl recordings for them, but it's just how it happened for me.
All right, okay. The band Dirty Honey is often compared with classic bands such as really big bands, for example, Led Zeppelin, or even Black Crowes, for example, Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses. Which bands do you feel most connected to, the most identified with of all these classic bands?
Oh, that's a good question because I don't feel that our music actually is very much like Led Zeppelin's, even though they're a huge influence on me personally. I think, once you get the stew of the four people brewing and going and everyone's influences piling in, I think the result, excuse me, is more like Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, Black Crowes. I think there's if you were to think about Mark's voice specifically, I think you could, find some similarities to um, Robert Plant, obviously, but you're definitely going to find similarities to Axl Rose and obviously his hero, Steven Tyler. So, but I think largely what differs from us and Led Zeppelin and Queen and bands like that is we're generally a shorter form song. I wouldn't say we're as exploratory as those artists. I think that's the kind of the key difference. Even Guns N' Roses, when you look at some of the stuff they did on Use Your Illusions, they got more exploratory, I think, and I would say that's the main difference.
All right. Okay. For example, when I see your videos in YouTube on YouTube, there are a lot of comments from people in their 50s, people even in their 60s, that they are really, really happy with your stuff because they think, okay, with bands like Dirty Honey, there is a hope that this kind of music will last into the future. How do you see it when people, I don't know, in their 50s or even 60s, are so really happy with your band?
Well, I think it means that we did our homework well, and I think it means that that we carry the torch with passion and with some semblance of genuineness. You have to imagine that people in their 50s and 60s have been seeing bands try to do this for the last 4 decades.
Mhm.
Trying to do this sound, and it has work, and it seems that what we've done so far has worked, and that's uh, a really great start and vote of confidence. As far as hoping that we can keep this music alive for the future, that actually really heavily relies on the younger generation getting into it, and I think that's still our challenge, and that's still our goal: is how do we get the younger kids? What do we do to get the younger kids into our music?
That is the next question. What about the younger people, the kids right now in the States? What kind of music do the young people listen to nowadays in United States, in America?
Well, I think, of course, it would be foolhardy to say that they all listen to one genre. There are young kids at our audience, and every show has a portion of younger patrons, but I think by and large, younger kids not only are not as exposed to rock and roll, they're also experiencing music differently than we did and you did, and people older than us. It's a entirely different paradigm. If you're 18 years old, you only know Spotify. You only know basically free music and playlists, and you're not concerned with whether or not an artist makes a complete good album.
No.
You know, that whole conversation is just an older thing. And so it's not just what do they listen to, it's like how does music relate to their life. When I was 8 years old and discovering music, I was discovering albums and discovering a band, and then looking for more of their stuff. The birth of the internet was there, so there was some resemblance of what the future is going to be, but they're just fully in the they're in the generation of overcrowded music space, very easy access, and I think because of that, they may not even be looking to get as excited by music like we were. They may be looking more just to have things that are a nice soundtrack to their lives that they can loop and play again and again. So it is a task, a tall task, I think, for us to figure out how can we slide in there.
Mm-hmm.
We really have. That's what you have to do. I mean, bands like all the bands that we open for, they're already in. Kiss, the Scorpions, Guns N' Roses, the Black Crowes, the Who, all these bands we've opened for, they're already all set.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of crossed that hump. So, and they did it the old way. Kids now will go because their uncle took them or their dad took them, and they'll just check it out. So if we're there and we're exciting, that's one way.
Mm-hmm.
If we can grab all the if we can grab all the daughters and sons who go to the show that we're opening for, that would be great. And of course that's one way to do it, but I think also there's an element of how do we slide into that streaming, the onslaught of just streamable music.
Yeah, it has to be really difficult to get the attention of the kids. For example, as you mentioned, when you had a vinyl on your hands, you had an hour for that band. You listen to all the tracks, you analyzed everything, the pictures, everything. And now they are maybe 20 seconds on streaming all the time, and it's very
Yeah.
difficult to get the attention 20 seconds, maybe 1 minute.
Yeah. And I think more than ever also, because if you find out about somebody online, you can immediately find their Instagram, their TikTok, their YouTube channel, you can find all this access to the person. And so I think more than ever now, I think your personality really needs to be available.
Okay.
And interesting, obviously.
Of course.
Can't be
Okay.
boring.
Okay, you're going on a major tour in Europe in June and July this year with two shows in Spain. What about your popularity here in Europe? It's similar to the United States, or in America you are bigger?
I think we're a little bigger in America, but I am proud that we have grown our audience to a somewhat similar size, especially in the major cities, London, Paris, the Netherlands as a whole, Milan. There's maybe even Poland. There's a few. There's a few cities where we just do really, really, really well. We did well in Rome as well. Um, so, and I think I'm trying to remember which Spain show had the largest audience. We've played Bilbao, we've played Barcelona, we've played Madrid. I just can't remember which one was the biggest. But I mean, that's a testament too. Even if we only played, if we're not opening and we play our own size audience, it's still very good. And so I think, if we just keep making music and showing up, hopefully something will.
Okay. This year you will play your own show in Barcelona, and you will play with the Scorpions in Pamplona. What can you tell me about Scorpions? What does Scorpions mean to you?
Well, I think their heyday was well before my awareness, but it's just to me it's like opening for that kind of like rock metal royalty. These guys were tried and true globetrotters, and in the 90s when I was a kid they still had leftover hits in rotation. I actually remember the ballad, the one where he says down to Gonky Park, winds of change. Winds of Change, that's the one I remember, which was kind of the end of their thing, but in terms of being on the radio and stuff. But it's just really cool. I always look forward to being around these kind of legends. If we're lucky enough to talk to them, it's always a benefit. But even if we aren't, it's really cool to see how the big boys do it. And yeah, it's always exciting. We're very excited to do those shows.
For those who still don't know really well to Teddy Honey, how could you define one of your shows? What can they expect if they go to your show? How could you describe?
Well, you can expect well, you can expect high energy, but you can also expect big ballads, and you can expect rock and roll music that's played for the purpose of the audience enjoyment. We're very much, it's big riffs and big songs, big riffs and big hooks, and a focus on lighting up the audience. And I think maybe that doesn't happen as much in rock music. It's maybe most of the times more guitar music, where the guitarist takes solos all the time. I mean, I take a solo every song, but it's always short, and I think you could expect to see an exciting songs band,
Mm-hmm. For example, on the cover of your live record, we can see you crowd surfing. Is something common, or was really, really special that day, or is it common to see you crowd surfing playing the guitar?
Look, you can expect, to the audiences out there, if you're wild enough, you can expect that for sure. I'm a firm believer that every audience, by just paying and coming, earns the best show I can give. But when it comes to crowd surfing, I do have to kind of gauge and see, are they wild right now? Because if they're wild, then I'm in. If they're tame, I don't want to jump on them. So
that might be dangerous.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So if you're
Okay.
wild, we can have a ball.
Great. How do you crowd surf here in Spain?
Yeah, I hope to. Let's do it.
Okay. We talk about what has it meant for the band to be part of the soundtrack of the Minecraft movie starring Jason Momoa and Jack Black. It has been really a jam for the band, I reckon, is being part of this soundtrack of the film. What can you tell me?
Absolutely. It's given us a shot in the arm of excitement again, and it almost feels like the beginning again, like when we were first getting our first radio hits, and to be part of a movie that's potentially going to break $1 billion in revenue, for to see the movie succeed so well, and also that it's Jack Black. When I was a kid, he was the School of Rock guy, so like, and I'm sure you remember that as well, of course.
Yeah.
And, so it's kind of serendipitous that we're in a movie with him in it, you know. And we've actually met Jason Momoa before at when we opened for Guns N' Roses. He's good friends with people who work with Slash, and yeah, it feels like somewhat of a family affair, and it's just really exciting to be a part of it. And yeah, it's a little bit surreal.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You have mentioned when you played with Guns N' Roses. I think you have played with different big bands. For example, Mahmood, WV8, Guns N' Roses. I think Kiss, Rival Sons.
Yep.
What can you tell me about the experience with the big names playing with the big with these big bands? What is the
Uh,
experience you had?
I mean, the first times, it's always it's always sort of memories for a lifetime. You know, there's a different thing with each one. You know, Guns N' Roses, you know, is the opposite of what they became notorious for in the '90s. You know, they show up on time, they always play the show, nobody's late. The organization is a tight ship. You know, when you're opening, they treat us very well business wise, but it's, you know, there's no fucking around. And you know, we're very lucky to be in their good graces. And the first time we played with them at a proper opening slot in a stadium was Poland in Warsaw, and that was otherworldly. We got to sit side stage for about an hour with their agent knows us, and that was really, really surreal, man. I mean, he gave me like a headphone mix so I could hear the in-ear mix of the band. I mean, it was just, I was like 10 feet. I was on stage, basically, just sitting there, Slash walking by me. I mean, it was just, I'll remember that forever. And Kiss was really, really friendly. They treated us amazing. Paul Stanley, especially, would come down to our dressing room and ask us how we'd been doing. So, like the second time we played with them, he came back. He's like, "How you guys been? Tell me what you're up to. What's been going on?" We were like, "Wow, cool." You know, um, these rock legends, you know, they care. And Rival Sons was great. You know, we we went and saw them 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, when we first moved to LA, and we had discovered them on YouTube, and we went to a show, and there was like 40 people there. You know,
Wow.
so yeah, in America. And well, we knew that they were better, that they did better in Europe. And
Yeah.
so to open for them in Europe, it just felt right. And they were great guys, and we're friends. You know, we've become friends with Miley, the drummer. He's around LA a lot. So yeah, it's otherworldly to open for those big acts, and you get to see how a real organization operates. You get to see the differences in them, and um, you know, you get to play for a lot of people. So
I think that last week or some days ago, you attended to an AC/DC show in California, I reckon.
yeah, we just went like a week ago. Yeah,
Yeah. Would you love to open for them? And what about the experience seeing
I mean,
right now
obvious.
AC/DC?
I think it's no surprise. We would love to open for them, of course. You know, it's we've come close. I'll say that, and you know, we've we've tried very hard. So hopefully, if they keep touring, maybe we'll get a chance to do that. I'm sure that would be, you know, a bucket list for Mark, especially. So, um, you know, we'd love to do that, of course.
Being a guitar player, what do you feel watching to Angus Young playing and his
Angus, Angus,
particular sound?
Angus was a big influence on me. Absolutely. I love his playing. I love everything about his playing. I mean, he's just great. He's just soulful. He can rip when he needs to. He can be melodic. He's bluesy, and he's a groover. You know, I'm a huge funk fan. I spent a lot of time playing funk and R&B and blues, and I don't consider myself a great blues player, but watching them last week You know, some of the chops have gone down and the speed has gone down, but the groove is still. And he has this vibrato that's his. It's his alone. So it's cool. I was watching. I was like, imagine if this was my grandfather. I'd be like, wow, my grandpa rips the guitar, you know. And he just has. They have this experience in every note that they play, and it's just really fun too.
Yeah,
It's just fun. They're up there grooving, man. That's all
yeah.
they're doing.
I
It's
saw
not
them
metal.
last.
It's not, you know, throughout their career they got labeled as metal. They're not metal. They're grooving. That's good time music.
Really, saw them last year, and they are, especially Angus. They are really, really great.
You know what I
And
mean?
Brian also. Brian also.
Yeah.
Okay. We talk about guitar players. You have told me that Angus is a big
Yep.
influence on your style. What are the biggest influences for you all time? Biggest influences? Talking about the guitar players.
Yeah. Well, from the time I was a kid till now, um, the players that I spent time obsessing on, the first one was Jimmy Page. The next two kind of simultaneously was Angus and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Um, and then once I smoked a lot of weed for the first time, it was some of the jam bands. You know, I got into Fish, I got into Allman Brothers. I was into Allman Brothers as a kid, but I experienced them differently with psychedelics for sure. And then that kind of led to Derek Trucks. There was a period there where he's just there was a period there 20 years ago where his playing was just, I mean, he's still amazing, you know, but they're not really a songs band. They're kind of more of a guitar focused band, but he's just, he's just unbelievable guitarist. I mean, it's like the heavens open up. And then, yeah, you know, I don't know. I feel like I'm forgetting someone. You know, when I was in college, I had a huge phase with Brian May. I just love Queen, you know, and Van Halen. He's a huge influence too, but not actually chasing all the tapping and stuff. I just like the riffs and the attitude and the groove. I love the solos, and every now and then I challenge myself to learn one, and it's fun. But yeah, those and then of course Slash. And again, he's the big influence with Slash for me was the band, the attitude, the songs, but how he approaches every song differently. He really serves the song when he solos,
Mhm.
and
When
he's
we
just
talk,
it's like if Keith Richards was into metal.
Mhm.
It's just like, you know,
We're
especially in the early '90s.
talking about the guitar players. Most of them, almost all of them, are coming from the last century, from the 70s, 80s, 90s. Have you discovered, found out any good guitar, any younger guitar player from the last decades? Any
Yeah,
younger guitar
you
player?
know, one guy who's amazing is Marcus King. He's kind of more like a soul southern rock guy. Who else is really good? Man, there's this guy. Yeah, it's different. I think guitar music has changed, so there isn't as much of a focus on the same things that those guys did from the other century. uh, you know, I mean, just as a soloist, Eric Gales is amazing. He's kind of got this like Hendrix fire. Um, yeah, Marcus King. But Derek Trucks is kind of from the last 20 years. You know, in a completely opposite way, Blake Mills is an incredible guitarist, but he's not in a band, so that's kind of an off the beaten path. And yeah, it's tough, man. You're right. I don't know. You know, there was a period there I thought Matt Bellamy was pretty cool, kind of in the maybe 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm. All right.
but he's not. He's still kind of different. It's tough, man. I mean, if you're into guitar music, you have to be into old music.
All right.
Like in the rock way, you know. There's a lot of people doing on the internet. There's a lot of people doing. There's a lot of kids now learning funk, R&B, and stuff like that, and like playing Stratocasters and there's a whole world of that. But yeah, the rock thing's different, you know.
Okay.
Di-
Just three questions to finish the interview. We have been talking about your audience. You have people in their 40s, 50s. You have also some kids in your audience. You have released an EP, two records, studio records, a live album. How important is for you the physical format? I mean, the vinyls, the CDs, in comparison with the digital platforms. Is a 50-50, or for you are is really important the physical formats? What can you tell me?
Well, the physical format has provided a great thing to be selling when we're on the road. You know, there's a certain portion of people who worship format and they always want it. But of course, it's really important that we stream as well, you know.
Mhm. Okay. Are you working on a new material for upcoming third record, or is early yet?
Yeah, we're working on new material all the time. Yep. We've definitely got a whole batch going, and it's going to be a little while because we're going to hit the road for like basically 3 months. So, and we don't have time to record a record before then, it seems like. Um, so
So
probably
that
the
means
end of the year.
end of the year,
Hopefully,
but
yeah.
the recordings or releasing it.
Like you know, recording definitely.
So for the next year, maybe. It could be
Probably.
ready next year. All right.
Hard to say though. I don't. You're gonna quote me, but don't quote me.
Mhm. Okay. Just to finish the interview, you play passionate music with passion, a lot of passion. It's a difficult time playing music with passion in the age and the time of the artificial intelligence. It's difficult
Yeah.
to combine this.
Well, yeah, and I think that ties back to the nicely to the beginning of the conversation with in regards to younger kids. I think they listen to a lot of more chill AI or just artists that are streamable and you don't have to get riled up by the music. And yeah, so it's the task I think that's, you know, ahead of us. It's like how do we get in there with this kind of passionate style?